This is my nickname joke, by the way. Did you catch this?
What, they call him Jimmy?
Yeah.
Just because there's so many Joshes on the team?
Ridiculous. Imagine if I had another podcast co-host named Trevor, so I just called you Tommy.
Hey.
Like, your name's not Tommy. No one's ever called you that, but there's too many. You're Tommy. I was dying laughing when I saw that. I almost felt disrespected for him.
I don't know how to take that either, right? Like, are you not good enough to still be Josh?
Or are you Josh Simmons now? Like, were you Jimmy when you got there? Because he transferred from San Diego State. And now it's like, he walks back this year and he's like, what's up, fuckers? It's Josh. And they're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm Jimmy now. The other Joshes are Jimmy.
All right, so Josh Jimmy Simmons. Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers joining you guys for episode 1 of the Big Beauties for summer scouting. That's what we call them around here. It's not the big uglies. It's the trench guys. We call them the big beauties around here. This is offensive tackle day. So Connor and I are going to give you our top offensive tackles going into the college football season for the 2025 NFL draft. Don't worry. Next week we will get to the interior guys. We're not leaving them out. Everybody calm down. We're talking offensive tackles first. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I agree with you. On this show, we have gone by the big beauties. I might have said to you that somebody was built like a muffin before the show started, but that wasn't on the air, so it never happened. It doesn't count.
But what's better than walking by a bakery?
Nothing.
And just seeing
smells, the windows,
beautiful blueberry muffin.
Muffin might be the best pastry.
Ooh,
when done right. Like double chocolate muffin to me, I don't know what I could put up against it.
I don't hate it. Because like a good I'm a blueberry muffin guy.
Right. And they're great.
Peak to me.
Phenomenal.
I don't have a big sweet tooth. So like when I wake up in the morning, like I'm not a big like sweets guy. I don't crave it right away.
Yeah. Like you would eat like a chocolate croissant when you were
blueberry muffin though. It's the perfect amount of sweetness in the morning. So
it's the good stuff.
You know what? You kind of started that saying it was a little bit of an insult. Maybe it's not. Maybe that comp that you had there. Maybe we need to rethink
the blueberry muffin of right tackles. And it's the grade's a 9 out of 10. I'm great, man. It's good to be back. I know that we were a little behind on this one. It's just, listen, it takes a while. Like you and I watched double-digit tackles, and this is just tackles. And part of that process we were talking about off the air too is that you run into guys that quickly on tape, you're like, oh, this guy's probably better for the interior episode as well. So the offensive line process of summer scouting it's a pretty deep one. And this was a fun watch because I'm not ready to say it has the star power that last year's group had in the first round, but this group has depth and it has some players that are really on a great trajectory. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Last year's class was really good, obviously, with how many offensive tackles went in the first round, how much we talked about them pre-draft. It felt like you couldn't get out of the first round without, if there was any hint of an offensive line need for a team, you were like, oh, I got the guy for you. It didn't matter whether it was in the top 10, the top 20, or even the back part of the first round. So I don't think it's going to be that deep at the top, but I agree with you. There's a lot of really good players, and I felt as though there were a lot of players in this study specifically where I'm watching them and there's some obvious like, okay, here's your strength and weaknesses thing. There's a lot of underclassmen that it's like, okay, you very clearly can still get better. So I'm excited to really talk about those here with you. And I'm sure it's going to make our rankings pretty interesting because it's sort of, all right, do we view this guy as, hey, what you see is what you get? Or does one of us believe there's some untapped potential there? You could still get more out of the strengths. You could really mitigate the weaknesses. And obviously, you'll hear a lot of the same names this week and next week as we talk about guys being either tackles or interior players, because that's just the nature of when you talk about offensive line. But we're going to give you guys our top 8s today. So we'll go a little bit quicker, 8 through 6. We'll rattle off those 3 and then obviously get a little bit more into the weeds with our top 5 and kind of highlight these guys individually. Connor, I will let you start out, my friend. What do you got, 8 through 6?
Yeah, let's rock and roll. Number 8 for me was Riley Mahlman, the right tackle at Wisconsin.
Okay.
Number 7 for me was Blake Miller, the tackle out of Clemson. And then number 6 for me was Wyatt Milum. I want to make sure I say that right. Out of West Virginia, he's played right tackle. Now he plays left tackle. Like just wildly pleasant surprise of a watch. Just a phenomenal player to watch, and was obviously on my radar because I watch him, but not somebody I went into this with all this hype and expectations. So Milum from West Virginia, he's a really good player.
So we actually don't have any similar players.
That's kind of crazy. Well, yeah, and I'll say right off the bat, I was really disappointed that like at number 9, just on the outside looking in, because he's so athletic and he was a transfer and started at left tackle for Ohio State, but Josh Simmons was number 9 for me.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. I really liked his tape, and I see him, really growing as the year went on. But I just want to see, a little bit more. But somebody that I want to give a shout out to that was at 9 for me and really could have been at 8.
Yeah, I think you're going to give more than a shout out to him because he's going to come up later in the show.
Perfect.
So we're definitely going to talk about Ohio State left tackle Josh Simmons. There's no doubt about that. Wyatt. So Wyatt just missed my top 8. I have him at 9. I think that's the most similar ones that we're going to talk about because there's another name that you mentioned that we can't talk about yet because I have him higher on the list and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But let's just start with Wyatt Milum from West Virginia, senior offensive tackle there. Their left tackle, 6'6", 317 pounds, so above 60th percentile in both height and weight. What'd you think about him? Because you had him at 7, correct? I got him at 9.
I had him at 6.
Okay, you had him at 6. So let's talk about him. A little bit of back and forth. What'd you like about Milum?
Well, number one, that he's just got great length to close off the edges and really knows how to use it, in my opinion. He was somebody that I just found him getting his hands under the pads of pass rushers to stall their momentum. And you said it, like, this is a big guy. He's 6'6", he's 314 pounds. I thought he moved well at that height. He's very difficult to get around. He just understands positioning. And it's not a surprise. Like, that's something you see on tape for somebody that, as a freshman in 2021, he was their starting right tackle. In 2022 and 2023, he was their starting left tackle.
Yeah,
former 4-star recruit. He was a really big recruit. He just decided to stay home in his home state. He's from West Virginia. So he's played already 3 years at tackle from his freshman through junior season, both sides. And you see the experience in year 3 where he's a little bit ahead. You said it, Trevor. There's a lot of guys we're going to talk about today that you're projecting because they haven't played as much. They have some habits that they're working on fixing, but they're so physically gifted. Mm-hmm. With Milum, I thought he was a guy that a lot of the finished product looks really, really good. I think his burst and outside zone and his ability as a smooth climber on linebackers and finishing his blocks was excellent. I mean, the way he angles his body as a blocker when on the move and specifically in the zone game, he just knows how to cut off. He knows how to get on top of guys right away to really kind of take them out of the run fit. The thing I wrote down for him is, and you'll see it when you watch him against Penn State, like, he's a taller guy. Naturally, that pad level is going to be a little high. Mm-hmm. Adiza Isaac was able to bend around him. He held up really good against their other rushers. But Isaac, a guy that knows how to turn the corner and bend, he got him pretty good on a rep. Yep. And that's just something that Milum at 6'6", like, he's going to have to deal with. But love the movement skills, love the length. If you're a team that is running a lot of outside zone, I think you're going to absolutely love this guy. And you have to appreciate somebody that comes in as a true senior and has already started at both tackle positions across 3 years. That's impressive to me.
Yeah, sometimes pass pro is difficult to project to the next level because edge rushers get so much better, right? They get so much better because the baseline for being a starting caliber NFL edge rusher, you got to be bigger, you got to be longer, you got to be faster, you got to be stronger. So you'll get some of these guys that will play tackle at the college level and they might yield some good pass blocking grades. But to me, there is more instability with pass blocking grades. Not that they can't hint at good ability from the tackle, but there's more potential instability with pass blocking grades than there are run blocking grades. Normally, if you were a good run blocker at the college level, you are going to continue to be a good run blocker at the NFL level. Like, that is normally just something that is a little bit more stable. So when you look at, Wyatt Milum, this is just from 2023. So it's not his entire career. I just took the last year. Run blocking grade in man and gap scheme, and then run blocking grade in zone, 72.8 grade and a 71.9 grade. really solid numbers there in both zone blocking and man and gap scheme blocks. You're going to hear us talk about this over the next 2 weeks because it is a little bit different, and I'll try to make sure that I'm always explaining this correctly. We have some statistics that we think, or I should say grades, data points, that we think are more stable when it comes to projecting success or failure at the college level to the NFL level. When you're playing offensive tackle, negatively graded run plays are more stable than necessarily positively graded run plays because it showcases, okay, if you are a good run blocker, you are going to be a good run blocker most of the time. So those positively graded run blocking plays, they could, sometimes be by chance, right? You line a guy up the right way. He doesn't see where you're coming from. The rest of the line does their job really well. And sometimes you can just get those pancake blocks that look incredible that you've got to give a plus 1.5 or a plus 2 grade from because you absolutely destroyed them. But on a play-by-play basis, the more stable metric is how often did you earn a negative grade on a run blocking play? Because if that is much less frequent, well, then now I can depend on you a lot more as a run blocker. Right. So all that to say, negatively graded run plays, 50th percentile for Wyatt, which is pretty good. Actually, one of the better marks in this group, which I think we'll talk about kind of as this show goes on. But I agree with you 100%. One of the notes I have for him in his strength, just smart, aware player. The eyes are always looking, it feels like, to look for extra work. The angles, you mentioned how well he can make up for that higher pad level. He does a very good job with that. Reminding me a little bit of Caleb McGarry when it came to utilizing that big frame, that length. And so this is somebody who I think is just a really smart offensive lineman. Matt Goncalves from Pittsburgh, it kind of gave me those same vibes where it's like, okay, maybe not the most athletically gifted offensive lineman, but I feel like he just gets it. Like he knows how trench play is done and how to succeed at that level. Because the first step's a little bit slow for him. He's not a great athlete, but he makes up for it in a lot of ways. So this is a player that maybe the ceiling is a little bit lower with Wyatt Milum, but I think the floor is pretty decently high for him to stick around the league and get a couple of starting shots here and there.
And you just love, if you're drafting someone like that on day 2 or the top of day 3, that he's played both sides. Because you're looking for, when you draft depth, you really prefer them to be able to be a swing tackle. And I think the term swing tackle, like that phrase, gets thrown around recklessly, where not everybody can play both sides. Well, I've watched Wyatt Milum play both sides successfully at the college level, so I think he could do that, and I think it really adds to the value of him as a prospect.
Yeah. No, so a fun background for him. He was also a pitcher in high school who had verbally committed to Marshall to play baseball before he ended up, committing to West Virginia to play football. And don't quote me here because I read this, but it seems outlandish. Did not allow a sack in his entire high school career.
I'm not surprised.
Sounds very outlandish. So I don't know. I might have to do some more research on this one, but I did see that noted.
Who is like PFF grading high school games, though, is what I want to know.
Some true addicts. That's what I'll tell you.
Like allowed 3 pressures his senior year of high school. It's like, who is doing this?
I don't.
I'm sure there's a system out there somewhere.
Yeah, if you're a high school football PFF grader in the shadows, shout out your grind in the comment section. We need to know who you are. We need to salute you people. Okay, so you had the Wisconsin offensive tackle at number 8. I did not watch him, so can you give a couple of words on him before we move on to the next guy?
Well, and to clarify, I know you did watch their left tackle, Jack Nelson.
Yes, I watched Jack Nelson.
Yeah, Mahlman is their right tackle. So the theme of this show that a lot of you will recognize is duos. Like it's impressive. A lot of the tackle duos in the country. Right. I was like, wow, I'd finish a player, and I always try to keep schools together. And I'd be like, okay, I'll stay on this school and go back to the tackle across from him. So Riley Mahlman is a redshirt junior. He is 6'8". He is a very, very tall human being. And he is someone that started all of 2023 at right tackle, and he started 6 of Wisconsin's games at right tackle in 2022. A former 4-star recruit from Minnesota. This is someone, to me, when you watch Wisconsin go very inside zone heavy at times last year. Remember how long Wisconsin was so gap heavy, and last year they made a big transition to a lot of the zone running game. You watch him in inside zone, like this is a people mover. He just understands how to use his strength. He's 6'8". He's quick out of the gate, like off the ball for his size. And when he lands on defenders, he drives his legs. So a lot of tall guys, I think at times in zone, they can make up a lot of ground quickly, and they have burst even though they're tall, but they don't know how to sustain blocks. And sometimes it's okay because you're so big and you don't have to sustain a block. You just got to do your job. I think with Riley Mahlman, what impressed me was he was somebody that really knew how to drive his legs and move people completely out of the lane and open up space for his running back. So that jumped out of the gate right for me right away. I think when you look at him in pass pro, he obviously moves well. He's got the length. He's got the size. His hands get a little wide at times, and this is a younger player. Keep that in mind. And these taller offensive tackles, 6'8". I mean, we've had these conversations in the past about tall offensive tackles. You got to watch your pad level for leverage because guys will try to dip around you, or they'll try to play really low, and they'll try to step to the outside and cross your face back to the inside, and it's just hard to play with consistently great leverage when you're that big. And I thought it was pretty good from Mahlman, but just something that he'll have to keep in mind. I will say it right here, like to kill a surprise, I thought he was the better tackle out of the Wisconsin tackles. And I'm not saying there was a reputation base. I think when you look at Jack Nelson, who is an NFL caliber player, I think he's just been playing longer.
Sure.
He was a starter at guard in 2021 and then left tackle all of 22 and 23. I think is a little bit more of a well-known commodity, but when I turned on tape from him to Mahlman, I was wildly impressed with Mahlman and what he's able to do, where it's the conversation we kind of had a little bit with Milum, where these guys that are taller and know how to use their length and can really get to their targets in the zone running game. It's definitely impressive, and it's translatable in my opinion.
So the other guy that you mentioned was Blake Miller from Clemson, and we will get to him a little bit later in the show. My 8 through 6, since we don't have any others that are similar, Ajani Cornelius, the right tackle from Oregon, I have him at number 8. From
Harlem, New York.
There you go. All right, shout out. Didn't know that. I should have known that. Where do I have him in recruiting? Oh, White Plains, New York. Okay, yep. I mean, yeah.
I think he was born in Harlem.
I was going to say
New York City football can get a little funky. But yeah, Cornelius, I love it. Nice.
7, I have Josh Conerly Jr., the left tackle from Oregon, so his teammate right there. Now, they're not the same player, but it is kind of funny that I just had him at 8 and 7. But
you treated them as the same player.
They're not. You're
like, screw this. Stay together. Make my life easier. I'm not moving the Oregon slot any further.
And 6, I think this will be surprising, but I think this will be a good conversation to have. I have Emery Jones from LSU at 6.
So I have him at 5.
Okay. All right.
Cha-ching.
Wow.
Did you think I'd have him top 3?
There's a lot of... So, I watch these...
I watch ball.
So...
It's so good to be back.
So, I don't like looking up rankings before I watch the players, right? Because I don't want to necessarily be skewed. Sometimes when you look up kind of like databases of like, hey, who should I watch? Sometimes they're ordered a little bit, so you can't really do anything about it. But I think there's a lot of people who will have Emery Jones in the top 3 of their offensive tackles, probably like right around number 3. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's wrong, but when I graded these things out and I watched Jones, I was a little shocked how consensus it was that it was like, okay, he's, a top 3 offensive tackle in this class, no question about it. Because there are some things I think he does really well, but there are also some things that I think holds him back a little bit. So let's have that conversation then. If he's 5 for you, that's coming up next anyways. But Emery Jones, so he is the right tackle for LSU. We will get to the left tackle for LSU a little bit later in the show. So Emery Jones, he's listed at 6'6". I have on pretty decent authority He is not 6'6".
Oh, yes. I can back up your authority. Verified.
I have him under 6'5" even.
Yeah.
I think he is closer to 6'4" flat or 6'4.5".
Right.
He weighs 320 pounds. So if he is 6'4.5", let's give him the half. That's just 15th percentile for offensive tackles, which goes into kind of his strengths and weaknesses. The weight, around 320. That's around the 60th, 70th percentile for the offensive tackle position. He's a former 4-star guy. He's from Baton Rouge. He's playing in LSU, which is really cool. Played both football and basketball in high school. He was a 2-time state champion in high school, which I like to note a little bit. Not that obviously football is the ultimate team game, but when you win state championships in high school and when you're kind of just a winner in college, something to that to me. Like you're just like it's just what you do. You expect to win. You train to win. You practice to win because you've tasted that before, and that's just what it's all about. So became one of 3 true freshman offensive linemen to start for the 2022 LSU offensive line. Obviously, he started again as well. So in 2 seasons, he started 24 games, all at right tackle for LSU. So I'll get to my strength and weaknesses, I think, as I can kind of like complement yours. But curious, with you having him at 5, just on the edge of your top 5, what'd you like about Emery Jones here?
What I really liked is just that stout build, and I thought the arm length, considering not the tallest guy in the world, I thought the arm length looked adequate to me. Like I watched him look at his build, and I'm like, okay, even though he's more 6'4.5", the arm length looked good to me. Just that mass and strength that he carries stalls the bull rush. When guys try to rush through him, you could really see them stop in the tracks because
he's got the beef.
He brings the beef, and he's just an old school brawler in the downhill run game. Like when they want to run north and south, it's like, okay, let's have Emery Jones get into a phone booth fight, and I'll put my wager on him. Like that kind of guy, and just that old school brawl and maul mentality. Let me get my hands on you. Let me bury you. Let me just fight through the rep. You know, where he gets into a little bit of trouble, and this is a developing player who made massive strides from 2022 to 2023, in my opinion. He could stop his feet and bend his waist when he throws his hands in pass pro at times. He kind of locks that lower half, and he could be a bit of a waist bender. And I think he's another guy like needs to watch that pad level. He could duck at times. And Trevor, I just don't know if he has the overall movement and agility skills for a zone running game. It wasn't pretty in the zone running game all the time. It goes back to my strengths of north and south, maul and brawl. But if we want to run this thing to the outside, I don't want to ask him to, get out in front and be moving and climb to his spots and climb to the second level and beat his man to the ball carrier.
I see a lot of similar things to what you see when it comes to Emery Jones. And because of that, I think he's going to be better at guard in the NFL level.
Wouldn't shock me.
I'm going to talk about him next week as a guard because I kind of put his build and his strength and weaknesses also through the guard categories that I have and sort of spit out a number. And the round grade that I get, the preseason round grade that I gave him at guard is higher than what I had him at tackle. Cause I feel as though he's probably a back end day 2 guy with how he plays at tackle right now. But if you're telling me he plays on the inside, well, now all of a sudden I think that we could have a potentially high impact interior offensive lineman with him. And obviously like the height, and if there are any length concerns, you're not really worried about that if you're moving him into guard. And so I actually saw that as a recruit, he was a interior offensive line recruit.
Yes.
So I did see that with him, that there was sort of this kind of debate of like, okay, is he playing offensive tackle? Is he going to play on the interior? So there was sort of there was a debate even in high school. They obviously put him at right tackle when he's at LSU, but man, you highlighted a lot of the strengths really well. The hands are up. They're always active, and they are powerful when they hit you.
They hit you. Yeah, it's heavyweight hands.
Dude, He's got bricks duct taped to his hand, and he is just punching the crap out of you. And these defensive linemen, they feel it. I also think you said it best. He is a competitive blocker. I love the way he approaches this. There was a rep, I can't remember which team it was. Might have been the Ole Miss game, where he gets a linebacker, so obviously he's supposed to kind of like overpower the linebacker, but he gets the linebacker in a position where like the linebacker obviously is screwed here. And he could kind of just, shove this guy to the ground. And you could tell, like, he almost like cocks it back and just boom, like buries him into the ground like an anime character does when they throw him through the ground, and just like the whole ground around them just like explodes and the earth cracks. That's what
you're probably wondering how I got myself in this position. Like freeze frame?
Essentially, for the defender. Yeah. So, I mean, he brings that Mauler's mentality that I would love on the interior. And
yeah,
it's not like it's not that mentality can't thrive at tackle. I am somebody who is pounding the table, banging the drum, whatever analogy you want to use, for Talize Fuanga to stay at offensive tackle with this kind of a mentality and this kind of a strength that he boasted to his game. I was the same way with Darnell Wright from Tennessee. These are two guys that I really liked. But the difference between those two players and Emery Jones to me is the foot speed. I thought both Fuanga and Darnell Wright had much faster feet, lighter feet than Emery Jones does. You watch him and his feet are heavy. He's a big dude. He's a powerful player. When he puts his foot in the ground, again, like it's boom, boom, boom. I mean, it's like the Hulk. And there's a reason why he has so much power to him and so much leg drive, and you love that about him. But there's also a little bit of a drawback when you project him to tackle. Because when you have that kind of slow feet, you're not climbing to the second level as fast. You're not able to cover as much ground in deep kick slide or in deep pass protection when you really got to protect the outside shoulder from a speed rusher, a guy who's got a lot of bend to him, some good burst off of the snap. And I think the part that really bugs me about him being one-on-one as a tackle so much is with those heavy feet, despite him having a good wide base, guys got to cross his face way too easy and way too cleanly, especially for a guy that's got as much power as he does. So that worries me when you are one-on-one a lot as a tackle. And a lot of those weaknesses get mitigated, or at least have help, when you were on the interior. Now, you got to have fast feet to play on the interior as well. I'm not trying to say that, everybody who's slow, you just kick him inside, it's going to be easy. But Jones' footwork, I think, is good enough to where if you put him at guard, you could really have a good starter at the NFL level, maybe even an impact player, maybe even a Pro Bowl type of a player from an interior offensive lineman. So that's what I thought about him and why I had him 6th on my tackle rankings.
5 for me. So I think you should probably jump to 5 for you then.
Where do you have the Oregon guys?
So I had Cornelius at 10.
Okay.
And then I had Conerly at 4.
Okay. All right. So we'll talk about Conerly. I'll just mention some thoughts on Ajani Cornelius, who I do like. I mean, he is Oregon's right tackle, 6'5", 310 pounds. His recruiting profile, 0-star offensive guard. Okay, in the 2020 recruiting class, he ends up committing to Rhode Island out of high school. Played both guard and tackle in high school, redshirted his first season, started 22 games at right tackle in 2021 and 2022, transferred to Oregon in 2023, then started all 14 games at right tackle last year. This guy, very similarly to Emery Jones, he's got the power. Like, he is a power profile type of guy. Now, I think the things that worry me about him, the arm length, I think it'll be average at best. It's likely below average. And like Emery Jones, I just think that Cornelius has got some heavy feet to him. If you get him between the shoulders and if he gets hands on you, I really like that part of his blocking game. I mean, I think he's got great grip strength. I think he can really bench press even defensive linemen and just get the space, get the arm length, really kind of throw him off their game when he's throwing those punches. But I just don't know if he's quick enough or athlete enough to be a starting caliber offensive tackle at the next level. I love the background. I love where he came from. I love how he's worked from being a 0-star recruit all the way through to Oregon.
Good college player.
Yeah, I think he is a really good college player. I think he handles power well too. I think he's got a great anchoring technique. I love the footwork there. I just don't know if he's an athlete enough to really succeed at the next level. He reminded me of Cam Fleming. You remember Cam Fleming when he was coming out of Florida State?
For sure.
Dude would beat the hell out of you every time the ball was snapped. And I felt like that's kind of Cornelius' game too, but not sure that's going to be a long-term starter in the NFL.
Okay, so you had them grouped together there. And now we should probably transition to his teammate in Conerly, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
And I totally agree with you, by the way, on Cornelius. That's how I landed on him right at 10, where I was like, this guy's had an awesome story. Like you talked about the recruiting profile, Rhode Island to Oregon as a starter and a really damn important part of that team. And he'll be a damn important part of that offensive line this year. So Conerly, I have at 4. And this is maybe the most interesting player we're going to talk about today, because I have him 6'4", 305, which is not very large for a left tackle.
Yeah.
But so he's a former top 40 recruit, 5-star recruit.
Yep.
Started all 14 games at left tackle as a true sophomore for Oregon last year. This guy is very athletic and very explosive. And you could see why he was a 5-star recruit and a big deal. He's so athletic and explosive that he is really dictating a lot of the reps by how quickly he gets into his pass sets. Like he's first man off the ball. I'm ready. Like, bring what you got. Light feet, great lateral agility to mirror. Like if you're twitched up and you're trying to cross his face or kind of rush at speed on the outside, he can keep up with that kind of rusher. And I think what I really liked about him is that there was times where I saw him reset his hands mid-rep to gain leverage, where he was engaged, first move hit, and and clearly these Oregon guys are clearly coached very, very well. Because when you look like Cornelius technique, phenomenal, by the way. I should have stated that when we were talking about him. Like he wins with technique and brains more than physical ability.
If I needed somebody, I know I have Conerly above Cornelius. He's one spot above him.
Cornelius is better.
If I was like, hey, I need one game. Like, yes, I need one game from you right now, I would pick Cornelius to block for me. I would pick him over Conerly right now.
I agree, but why I have Conerly at 4 is so much of the NFL draft game is projecting traits.
Yep.
And Conerly just has traits that you saw the green light come on at times last year. Like, don't get me wrong, he needs to get stronger in his lower half. That is weakness point number 1 for me. He's got to get stronger in his lower half. He is still learning how to sustain blocks in the run game. A lot of the blocks are get to the point or land there, but I didn't see that consistent like finishing mentality or the ability to drive guys out of the way all the time. I just thought he can arrive with more force on the move in the run game. But you're explosive, you're athletic, you're going to get there. Okay, now detonate someone. Because when we talk about some of the top guys in this class, like it's C4 all day with these guys. And we talked about it with Emery at times. When he lands, good night.
Yeah, correct.
So Conerly, it's all there for Conerly. There's going to be people, I think, that come out of summer scouting and think Conerly is a top 2 tackle in this class in terms of NFL projection. He just needs to put it on the field this year for Oregon. And the good news is he's a true junior right now. This is a young player. This is a player that has all the ability in the world. It's just kind of putting some of those inconsistencies, in my opinion, the power element to his game together. And another year in this program, I think he's going to add that strength to his lower half. I think he'll get better as a run blocker, but how much better can he get is the big question. But when you just look at the actual profile and what he was able to do throughout the course of a season in pass protection, I think it's all there.
There's a lot of tools with Conerly. You know, I have him at 7. The guy who came to mind when I was watching him, Jason Spriggs from Indiana, you know, I felt like the strength and weaknesses of what I was writing down with Conerly, how it was just so much like what a great athlete this dude is. Similar build. Both of these guys went off of athleticism. Spriggs ended up being a 2nd-round pick to the Colts, I believe, right? He went to the Colts. No, he was a
Packers.
Yeah, no, he was the Packers. He was the Packers.
He was like 298 pounds.
He was light. Yeah, he was lighter. But I mean, Conerly's listed at what? 305?
305. Yeah.
You know?
Once again, this is a guy that's got to get bigger and stronger.
Yes. So I think that's a conversation that we're going to have later on in the show when we talk about some guys that are in my top 5. It's like, hey, these guys have to get stronger because, yeah, you look at Conerly. I think the 2 things that really stand out for me is run blocking grade in man gap concepts, 59.7. Run blocking grade in zone, 65.6. Those got to be higher. Like the floor as a run blocker has to be higher in order for him to get drafted where his athletic ceiling kind of hints for him to get drafted at. You know, the weaknesses, they kind of echo a lot of what you already said. He's way too easy to bull rush right now. And I think his game is just lacking anticipation. He's reacting way too much instead of anticipating.
Yes.
And even with his good athleticism, I can see that on tape. So that's now look, 1-year starter last year. He's not a finished product. There's certainly a lot of room for him to grow, and he could be on the perfect timeline to show us that next year. Maybe it's even the year after. We'll see. But there's a lot to like about this dude. I read that in high school, he actually started his career as a running back as a freshman before moving.
I believe it.
Immediately to the offensive line as a sophomore in high school. So that's what we're talking about, the type of athlete this dude is. He also played basketball, so he's got that multi-sport background. But he is also somebody who, there's a couple of guys on this list, too many penalties last year. 8 total penalties from him. 6 of them were false start penalties, which kind of goes into that anticipation. I think he's thinking too much right now. It's not not enough of the game is second nature to him. I think sometimes he gets in his own head, he freaks himself out, but a lot to like about him as an athlete. But that's ultimately why I had him at number 7 and you had him at number 4.
I'm glad you brought up the penalties. That was my biggest issue with Jack Nelson, by the way, getting back to Wisconsin. Nelson, I think, had 13 penalties last year. Basically, every game he has a hold and or a false start. And eventually it can, with Conerly, he's still an ascending player. With Nelson, you'd like to see that, as experienced as he is, to kind of die down. And I was loud about that with J.C. Latham a year ago. I think it got better throughout last year, but, just things that you want to keep an eye on.
Emery Jones, by the way, 0 holding calls, only 2 penalties all year. One of them was a false start and one of them was an illegal block.
Because when he arrives, he just Mike Tyson's your ass. He just punches you right in the throat and you're done. That
actually should be the comp. It's just Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson, but a tackle. Emery Jones.
So my number 5 is Anthony Belton from NC State.
Okay.
Year 3. Where's
Belton?
Yeah.
Belton I had at 11.
Oh, so you had Belton way down there. Okay.
I had him right behind Cornelius.
Well, I was wondering, it was going to be one side of the spectrum or the other. Either he was going to be in your top 3 or he was going to be not even close. So he ends up being not even close. So I'm higher on Belton than you are.
Yep.
Be honest with me. Is it just because of the Mekhi Becton thing?
I knew you were going to ask it.
Is your Jets' heart now just looking at Anthony Belton and I can't do it. It doesn't work. You're not going to fool me again.
If you're approaching 350, you're out for me. No, it's not. I mean, he has some of the same problems, but it's not. 348's a big number, by the way.
It's a big number.
He's 6'5" and 5'8", 348. So it's not like he's 6'8", 348. He's a large human at left tackle.
His nickname's Escalade, by the way.
Oh, phenomenal.
His teammates call him Escalade.
Phenomenal. Did you know? Yeah, I'll save it because we're going to get to him. Never mind. I have a funny nickname one coming up. Escalade is, oh my goodness.
It's perfect, isn't it? It's perfect.
It's phenomenal. I don't want to do the whole he's got to play guard because I think we do that a lot. I know I'm guilty of it.
Be a big ass guard.
He's right. Colossal
6'6".
build. He, once again, another phone booth guy to me. A couple of things that just scared me with him. He surrendered 23 pressures last year. It's hard for him to recover or readjust his body in pass pro when the rep is a true pass set. Gets long. I literally wrote in parentheses, it's the equivalent of a dump truck making a K-turn. It's just... the rep gets long.
I didn't think it was that slow. I see what you're saying. I didn't think it was that
When
slow.
he's on an island and the rusher can change directions, it's oh boy, he's 350 pounds. 350 pounds doesn't... it's not like not everybody moves like Amarius Mims, right? Or even Latham, to his credit, at times last year.
Right.
It's just the bendy, flexible speed rushers get under him and around that outside shoulder.
Well, I'll tell you what he's got to do. The hands have to be way more precise because now they're not.
I said the hands get so wide.
Way too wide.
It's too wide. The tackle from BYU last year that went to the Chiefs.
Oh, Kingsley Suamataia.
He was a very, very wide-handed pass protector.
Yes. And Tyler Guyton was kind of guilty of this as well. Guyton's obviously a different style here, but that to me, I think I'm probably giving because everything that you said, I do agree with. The deficiencies, I see them all on tape. I think the reason why I've got him at 5 is because it's like, okay, they don't necessarily teach 6'6", 250 pounds as a tackle. And I think he's got the athleticism to be able to survive out of tackle. So that all of a sudden puts you in a pretty rare category right there where I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you got that unique build. If he can get his hands on guys the way that he needs to, you start mitigating a little bit of that. But right now, the hand placement's all over the place, and it's just like you said, he's just getting exposed way more than he should.
It is. It leaves you wanting more. That's the Anthony Belton experience for me, where I was like, man, I thought, honestly, I found a couple, like a lot of the guys I had him were just more destructive run blockers while not carrying that mass. Emery, for sure, being one of them. Another guy that we're going to talk about shortly. Belton's every bit of like an NFL. Like I watched him and I ranked him. He was 11th for me, and I once again think this tackle class is good. But I think he'll get carved up in the NFL as a pass protecting tackle if he doesn't take some big strides this year. And honestly, I don't like doing this, but it really, part of the answer to me looked like play at 330.
Sure.
Honestly, 20 pounds. I think it'll look a lot different. I really do. Yeah. It's easier said than done. It's not easy. Maybe I do have Mekhi Becton scarring. I really might. I need to go talk to someone.
Yeah. See somebody professionally.
Yes.
Lord knows it's not me. No, yeah. So I think I see a lot of that as well. He had a lot of penalties too. 8 penalties, 5 false starts, 3 offensive holding calls. The pass blocking grades were not as good as they needed to be. This is somebody who had the opportunity to come out last year. He's a redshirt senior going into this year. But he didn't. And I think he didn't because he probably got NFL grades back and feedback from last year's draft class. And they're like, hey, you got to be way more consistent. But man, I mean, like the journey, you're a fan of the journey, right? 0-star offensive tackle in the 2019 recruiting class. He actually started as a he started as a wide receiver. Then he had a growth spurt in middle school, played linebacker, eventually moved to the offensive line. Because he was a 0-star recruit, he ended up going to Georgia Military Academy. Shout out. We've talked about them already here in summer scouting. Played 11 games at offensive tackle there. Didn't have a COVID season. Then he hopped over to NC State, where he's been playing ever since. So there's definitely things that he needs to clean up. But if I'm telling you, man, if he gets his hands right, and something that I noted, the very first weakness that I have with him is his hands are at the ready, but with as much power as he has in his upper body, I wish he'd be more assertive to dictate the contact. And I wonder if he doesn't do that because he doesn't trust where he's punching these guys, where the hands are going. And if you give me that, I mean, that's the stuff that going back to Fuanga and Darnell Wright, that's the stuff that I loved about those guys. They're strong, but they're taking the fight to you.
Right.
I love patience is also good. Like you're going to hear us talk about patience, I think, especially in our top 3 with some of those guys that are there. But there are times, especially when your style is a strong dude, brother, take the fight to them.
Yeah.
Dictate the contact, especially if you know that you maybe can't mirror as well as an athlete. Hey, get them off their game. It's like pressing a wide receiver, right? Make them uncomfortable. Bump them off the route. Dictate
everything.
Yeah, and I think that Anthony Belton's got the ability to do that. I just want to see it more from him. So who is... Well, I guess we got to go...
I was 2 ahead of you because 5 for me was Emery Jones, 4 was Conerly. So
okay.
We're up on 4 for you.
So I'm up at 4. This is Josh Simmons for me.
Okay, I'm glad we got here. This is my nickname joke, by the way. Did you catch this?
What? They call him Jimmy?
Yeah.
Just because there's so many Joshes on the team?
Ridiculous.
Change his name.
I mean, imagine if I had another podcast co-host named Trevor, so I just called you Tommy.
Hey.
Like your name's not Tommy. No one's ever called you that, but there's too many. You're Tommy.
You need to go beyond that. Just be like, all right, there's 2 Trevors here, so we're gonna call you Danny. We're like, wait, what?
I was dying laughing when I saw that. I almost felt disrespected for him.
I almost, I don't know how to take that either, right? Like,
it's like,
are you not good enough to still be Josh?
Or are you Josh Simmons now? Like, were you Jimmy when you got there? Because he transferred from San Diego State.
Right.
And now it's like he walks back this year and he's like, what's up, fuckers? It's Josh. And they're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm Jimmy now. The other Josh isn't Jimmy.
It's like when the NFL players, like we've been pronouncing their name a certain way for like 10 years and they're like, nope. Now it's this.
Yeah, Travis Kelce was like, it's actually Kels after he had like 8 All-Pros. And everybody's like, well, damn. What are we going to do?
And he takes it real personally, too.
Yeah.
He's like, don't call me Josh anymore. He's Jimmy.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Maybe watch Jimmy Butler in the playoffs one time. He's like, that's it. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Jimmy now.
What'd
you like about
he goes straight up to Ryan Day. He's like, yeah, you need to change my name on the depth chart. It's Jimmy. He's like, what? He's like, I said what I said. I won't repeat myself.
And walks away.
Just walks out of the door.
Instantly walks away. And he's like, all right, what am I going to do?
Yeah, that's actually, I respect it.
Plus starter for us.
All right. So Josh Jimmy Simmons from Ohio State, 6'5", 310 pounds, so a little bit lighter. It's the 30th percentile for both of those numbers. You mentioned it. He was at San Diego State first. He was a 3-star offensive lineman coming out of high school from the state of California. Ends up going to San Diego State, redshirted his first year, started all 13 games at right tackle in 2022. Then he transferred over to Ohio State last year. He started all 13 games at left tackle. Connor, this is a good football player.
It is, yeah.
I watched one game of him, and I wrote down so many things that I liked about him. Not that he's a perfect player, but so many things that I liked about him. Here's the strengths to this guy. Stance and base are wide and strong pre and post snap. So when he's sitting there, and also while he is moving, he can stay squatted. He can stay balanced. His base is so hard to get around. Fantastic balance. He can slide and mirror while he is in that squatted position. Consistently low pad level, which I also love. Adequate length for the NFL level. Footwork is quick. The slide length is long and adequate. Competitive player who plays through the whistle. Yep. Really good footwork when he is anchoring. He's 310 pounds, and there's some lighter offensive line. Like we talked about Conerly. We're going to talk about Blake Miller. But it's like he's 310, which is, like I said, 38th percentile for offensive tackle. I don't see him get bull rushed that much.
No.
Because he starts low, he slides low, he's got great core strength, he's got great lower body strength, and when you get into his chest to bull rush him, he can sink his hips back, he can shuffle his feet and get them wide where he needs to, and he will angle your momentum straight up. For a guy who's 310, he did not get bull rushed nearly as much as I thought he was going to be, which I thought I was going to write down as weakness. Because instead, I think he's got really fast hands. You mentioned, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Conerly you were talking about, where he'll hit you with an initial punch. Defensive lineman will break it, and he'll be like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm coming back for more." Like that ain't it. Like the hands are constantly moving. He's all over these guys. There are so many things that I really liked about Josh Simmons. I think that he can be a starting caliber offensive tackle at the NFL level. I truly do.
I'm with you. I mean, obviously you're a little higher on him than me. I think that I just came away like wishing he was a little bit bigger, but he's someone to me where, I mean, talk about the road, San Diego State under Brady Hoke, right tackle. And then you show up at Ohio State and you're just starting left tackle and you play at the level he played at. It's wildly impressive. Just how smooth he is.
Yep.
And you nailed it. The way he lands on targets in the run game, how explosive off the ball he is and wants to finish his blocks. I think there's some times where power, I think it was against Rutgers, I saw power kind of give him some issues. So I just wonder if that's, an adjustment level coming from the level he went at all the way to Ohio State.
He is one of those guys that I need to get stronger. And there's another player here that I will mention that as a big time.
I know exactly where you're going.
But if you tell me that he's going to get stronger, I'm in. I'm in on so much of the rest of what this guy brings to the table. Because you're right. It's like some of the negatives that I have here. Doesn't have true displacement strength in the run game. He didn't have as strong of run blocking numbers as I wish that he had. But again, if you are telling me that this guy can get stronger, there is so much that I like about him, and I just love the competitiveness that he has. So Simmons is somebody that I'm obviously a big fan of.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his potential.
All right, so time to jump into 3, right? Our top 3.
Yep.
All right, the toughest name to read on this list.
Oh.
At 3, Jonah Savaiinaea.
Okay.
Naya? I've heard it. The problem is I did watch videos of people pronouncing his name, and I've heard it 2 different ways. I written it down Savaiinaea, but I think there's a little bit something at the end there.
I think there's a little, you know, a little like flair at the end.
Savaiinaea.
Savaiinaea.
We'll get there.
We will.
Either way, I mean, really impressive. 6'5", 330. He's a junior at Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Started all 2022 at right guard. And then last year he played both right guard, but mostly right tackle. Trevor, I heard he's built like a Hummer. Like built like an H2.
Sure. Yeah.
Like this guy gets 8 miles to the gallon for sure. But it's cool. Like it looks cool. And it's gonna plow through everything in sight. He plays with such a wide base and strong anchor.
Yeah.
This was a little bit like watching Taliza Fuanga when guys tried to power rush him, where it was like, yeah, it's just not going to work. He's not going anywhere at all. Love how he plays with that wide base. The initial run blocking, like Emery Jones, that punch, there's a jolt to defenders. Like you kind of see them shake a little bit when he lands his punch in the run game. I was blown away by the foot speed, considering he's carrying 330 pounds. I'm not saying he's going to run a 4.9, but when they ask him to get to the second level, I mean, he gets there. He absolutely gets there. And going back to some of the guys that are true C4 in the run game, he detonates linebackers when they want him to pull. Like there's one block against USC where I was like, holy shit. Like he just lined a guy up and it was effortless. Mm-hmm. Absolutely effortless. I think there's times in this zone run game where the hand placement needs to improve to sustain those blocks rather than just trying to clobber everyone's head off every time. And I don't know if he's, you know, a high-end guard prospect or a tackle prospect. I liked what I saw at tackle last year, but I think I love what he is at guard with that build, but I think he could play tackle. But this dude, Arizona's got players on offense. Like they got players on offense, NFL players. And him coming in at tackle 3 for me, what he does in the run game and how strong he is as a pass protector, really, really good stuff.
So he's a guard for me.
Okay.
Like he's outside of my top 8, basically because a lot of the weaknesses that he has, I think are tackle specific stuff. Like I think the arm length is going to be an issue for him.
Right.
I think that makes it tougher for him, even with his quick feet. Like it sometimes makes it tougher for him to defend the outside shoulder while also defending the inside counter. Like it's just all that. So much of that gets mitigated if you kick him inside, because you talk about a guy who is an actually good conversation piece to move inside. You still have to have really quick feet to play on the interior.
Yeah,
this dude has it,
especially the scheme.
100%. Now I will say this: you are higher on him overall than me, and I think it's because you're a little bit higher on his just like overall strength than I am. Yeah. There were times when I watched him, I totally agree with you, just detonate somebody. Like if you line him up between the shoulders, I saw the USC clip that you tweeted out. It's like, oh buddy, that'll get you fired up. You know, and it's you love seeing those blocks. But I did think that on a play-by-play basis, he didn't have that like consistent punch power. And it sounds like you kind of saw that from him more than I did. So I think that's a big reason why I'm lower on him overall, because that's obviously the strength of his game. So if you see that even higher than I do, then it makes total sense why you would project him a little bit higher. And anybody out there who's watching or listening, if you watch Jonah and you go, yeah, I see power everywhere in this guy's game, then you're going to love him, because there's so much else to love about him with the quick footwork and the wide base and all that stuff. But outside of those true erasing blocks, I didn't really see like that. Like with Fuaga, it's like he put his arm on you and that was enough. Like guys were going flying. I didn't see that from Jonah. But hey, maybe it's kind of something where maybe I'm not watching the same games. Maybe I'm not watching the same snaps.
Right, and that's part of summer scouting.
Maybe I see a lot more of it coming up this year, because if you tell me that every single snap I'm going to get a really powerful player, I'll tell you that not only do I agree with you, this guy could potentially be a Pro Bowl type of guard, but I'd also say you got a chance to stick him at tackle if you ever get in a pinch, and you don't have to be too worried about it because he can handle himself. So, yeah, that's what I thought of him. I will bring him up again next week when we talk interior offensive lineman.
Another player that, he's only entering his true junior season. This is the last COVID year. Like, you got to make the distinction sometimes. There's going to be 23-year-old offensive linemen, and there's going to be 20-year-old offensive linemen. And I think physically that talking point matters so much. It goes back to Conerly. Like, I think Conerly has physical maturing to do that he will, and it'll look a lot different a year or two from now.
Yeah.
And I think Jonah's another guy like that, long-term play style.
Lower run blocking grades, run blocking in gap scheme 49.5, run blocking in zone 62.2. I mean, if those numbers go up, obviously, like he had a pass blocking grade of 79.7 on true pass sets, which, that's all right. You're not dressing it up with play action or quick throws, screens, things like that. These are like, 5-step drops. You actually got to block a guy. He's performing very, very well despite having lower percentile length for an offensive tackle. So it just tells you how quick this guy is and how smart he is as a tackle. So if we get that power up, I think on a play-by-play basis, then I'll be more in than I am right now. Number 3 for me. You ready for it?
Can I guess?
Sure.
Blake Miller?
No.
Okay. I don't know then.
It's Kelvin Banks Jr.
Okay.
I have Blake Miller at 2.
Wow.
Dude.
Sky high.
Should I talk about Miller before, and then we can both talk about Kelvin Banks Jr.? I think Miller's awesome. I get it. He's small. He's got to get way bigger, but like
he's not 300 pounds yet.
Dude, I know.
It drives me. I just can't until you get to that number.
So Blake Miller, Clemson's offensive tackle. All right. Clemson's got him listed at 6'6", 310 pounds.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not 310 pounds. And in fact, I'm going to pull up this text message right now. Friend of the show, Owen Reese, who I will text all the time, Shrine Bowl legend himself. I will text him all the time when it comes to, especially like offensive linemen.
Yeah,
he
knows a thing or two.
So much about offensive line play, and so I'll bounce ideas off of him. Sometimes I'll send him clips, and I'll be like, am I seeing this differently? And he'll be like, yeah, you're an idiot. But I texted him about Blake Miller the other day because I was like, am I crazy to put this guy in my top 3? And I think he said he liked him, but I said to Owen, I just wonder if he's playing at 295 and Clemson has him listed at 310. That's exactly what was happening.
Yep.
They had him they have him listed at 310. I bet he played last year at 295, which is second percentile for the position. So I 100% get it, but there's so much to like about this guy.
It's like Jason Spriggs.
Dude, it is like Jason Spriggs. I think he's got a higher ceiling than that. I think that this, maybe I'll save the comp for another time. Recruiting, 3-star offensive tackle, played both offensive and defensive line in high school, won a state championship in wrestling before high school. So he's got the wrestling background that we love for offensive linemen. He played both sides of the ball, which we absolutely love to see. This is an article from, I want to shout out the author of this article before I quote it here on the show. Chapel Fowler. So I found this from thestate.com. This is from Chapel Fowler, who wrote this back in September 4th of 2022. On the last snap of Blake Miller's high school career, he drew an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for driving his blocking assignment out of bounds and into a fence because he knew it was the last play of his high school career. Started lifting with the varsity football team as a 7th grader, and he played at 6'6". It says 300 pounds, but he did not play at 300 pounds when he was an 8th grader. We know that that's not the case. What I like about Blake Miller is Really impressive movement skills. Explosive, quick, balanced, in control, anticipating.
He knows how to mirror.
High IQ football player, very conscious of his technique, very conscious of angles. He knows how to beat you before the ball is even snapped sometimes. You can tell that he studies his opponents. He studies himself. He knows everything so well. The hands, they're up, they're active, they're quick. But the thing that I love about him the most, he is so patient, Connor. The hands hit his opponent exactly when they need to, exactly where they need to. And sometimes that's a little bit longer in the snap and in the play. Sometimes it's right off the bat. And the handwork that he has, the understanding is so good already. Really impressive core strength to maintain his blocks, even despite being less than 300 pounds. Now the weaknesses for him. Of course, you mentioned it. The reason why he's not even in your top 8. Or actually, wait, was he 6?
I had him 7th.
Okay, 7th. Lower weight makes him way too easy to move right now.
He's on the ground all the time.
Lighter frame makes him susceptible to push-pull moves, even from lighter edge rushers. I watched like 240-pound edge rushers get up into his chest and ragdoll him to the side. Admittedly, not great for my OT2. All right? The hand is up. I understand that. There is so much of the game, technique-wise, IQ-wise, the experience that he already has, all of the movement skills, it's so good from him that if you tell me, and I fully believe so, because when you look at his frame, it looks like a frame that can pack on 20 more pounds. If you tell me that he's going to get stronger, significantly stronger, albeit, but if you tell me he's getting stronger, Blake Miller brings so much to the table already as just a true sophomore underclassman that we have seen on tape to not succeed at the NFL level. If I could snap my fingers and have this guy playing even at 315 with that kind of strength, I'd start him in the NFL tomorrow. That's how well I think he understands offensive line play. So for him and for Kelvin Banks from Texas, who we'll talk about in a second, it was a toss-up, but I loved so much of what I saw from Miller that I just told myself, you know what, I'm going to put him at 2, and I'm going to put the caveat in there is he has to get functionally much stronger. There's no doubt about it. But if he does, I'm in. I'm all in on this dude being a potential first-round pick.
It's not crazy at all. True junior, right? So put on weight and add play strength. So I had him at 7, right? I mean, you nailed it. Like, the mentality he plays with, the ability to mirror is just phenomenal. And you brought up the patience, long, nimble, good feet. The balance is something that I just need to see improve. It's in the lower half. When power rushers rock him, he loses balance in that lower half. And I thought in the run game, he just found himself on the ground way too often. And it's because of the lack of mass.
Yep, totally.
It's a big man's game on that offensive line.
Blake, if you're listening to this, just do steroids. All right?
That's it.
You'll
go to the top 5.
Do steroids, get popped for it, get suspended the whole year. It doesn't matter. Then get off the roids. It's fine. You'll keep the gains. Just be smart about it.
Well, you got to do the cycle for the combine, right? Or they're going to test you there. You can't do that.
No. They're going to test you. That's why.
Pro day. Home field turf.
Just start juicing heavy.
It's what you do. You go to the combine. You interview with teams. You don't weigh in. You don't do anything. You just interview with teams. That's it. You run because you're still 295 pounds.
Yeah, sure.
You do all the athletic testing, but you refuse to weigh in, which I don't know if you technically do that. And then at pro day, like you said, Trevor, roids, weighing at 320, just jacked out of your mind. Top 5 pick.
Top 5 pick. We got an all pro offensive tackle if that happens.
If this podcast doesn't work out for us, we could be representation for prospects.
Yeah. No, we could be a
consulting firm, not representation.
Our consulting firm will tell your prospects to do steroids in their sophomore year so they can get it all out of their system, but keep the gains there for when they're draft eligible. Now all of a sudden they're freak shows.
It's you and me sitting there in suits, and they walk in, and we have a whiteboard with a sheet over it, and we go, okay. Thank you for your time today, everyone. Here's the plan. We pull the sheet and it just says anabolic steroids.
whoever the coach is at that point is going to give us the Step Brothers line. He's going to be like, all right, now the tuxedos are kind of fucked up.
It's so perfect. Too easy. All right.
All right.
Kelvin Banks?
Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. You got him at 2. I got him at 3.
No, I have him at 1.
Oh!
Yeah.
Whew! All right, you got him at 1. Tell me about him.
All right. Kelvin Banks enters 2024 with 27 starts at left tackle under his belt in just 2 years of college football. He is very, very thick build, ideal athleticism, plays with phenomenal leverage. He's consistently the low man in his pass sets. Knows how to drop his hips to really halt those speed to power attempts. And you could see it against Dallas Turner, by the way. That's where you watch it and it's like, okay, he knows how to drop his hips and halt that speed to power from Dallas Turner. Mm-hmm. I did not think Dallas Turner had a great day against Kelvin Banks Jr. The Vikings just traded an army of assets to get Dallas Turner in the first round. Possesses just reckless power for the downhill run game. Like the demeanor is A++. I love everything about the way this guy is mentally built for the run game. It is just wrecking ball in the downhill run game. He throws his hands with purpose. This is exactly the conversation that I was having about Conerly, the first half of it, where he's so good on the move in the run game. And when he lands, you're like, why did you not, arrive with intentions? Kelvin Banks is athletic and lands on his targets like he wants to saw them in half. So good at absorbing contact and quickly climbing to the second level. Like he can help block and climb to the second level. Yeah. He is such an effective player on an offensive line. I think I called it reckless power because I think the arms and legs can be all over the place when run blocking. Yeah. Right? It's a little bit of that. I understand he's not the tallest guy in the world.
Right.
But
do you think he's got really short arms?
I think he's going to come in the same way that Slater did, right at the 33 and a half.
Sure. Yeah.
I think he's going to come in right on the fringe of some teams will be okay with it and some teams will have their little piss pants party over it. And
because Slater was at 33 inches, so that's 29th percentile. I think that you're probably right there because actually Slater's a good, I think, physical comp because Slater was a little over 6'4", listed at 304, 33-inch arms. I think that's going to be pretty close to what Banks is.
Banks is he's a brick shithouse though. Like this dude.
You think he's stronger than Slater? I don't.
The raw strength is stronger. Slater knew how to maximize his strength. There's a difference. Like Banks is somebody that I'm sure if he just stepped into the weight room, he'd just destroy everybody or just end up once again the phone booth fight. I think Slater was technically in a place that not a lot of offensive linemen are. I just think that, and Banks, let's not forget, this is a really young player. I thought he was in big matchups. He was locked down in pass pro. To me, lockdown. And he's figuring, like the end of the year, I thought the second half of the season as a run blocker, he started to figure it out. That I'm just not a cannonball. I actually could play with a little bit more control. I loved him. I think he's my favorite player I've watched in our entire summer scouting so far.
Wow.
It was either him or Luther Burden. I loved him. I couldn't believe how good he was. Like, I was just sitting there just like, wow. Because my number 2, obviously, is Will Campbell, who's a phenomenal prospect.
Right.
But I was blown away by the tape that Banks has put out in such a short time at left tackle for Texas, which is, I don't think he's been appreciated enough at his age.
The movement skills are phenomenal. Obviously, anytime you're a 5-star, you've got to be a really good athlete. That's where a lot of these recruiting agencies, not that they're like shortcutting this, but like in order to be a 5-star, you have to be a really good athlete. Right. You have to be able to see that. There's just not many players who are in that 5-star label that aren't fantastic athletes. And when that's the case, when you're a trench player, obviously it means a lot more because you're clearly able to stand out as an athlete while being a bigger, heavier player. So Banks is absolutely somebody who that 5-star recruiting label shows up. He had 85.0 pass blocking grade on true pass sets last year. And again, we're talking about a true sophomore. So that is just a testament to how well this guy moves. Some of the strengths that I have listed here: flexible hips, wide base, powerful wide stance, foot speed, explosiveness, all well above average for the pro level to play offensive tackle. Can move while he's in a squatted position with a low pad level, which you love to see. Natural athleticism gives him a high zone blocking potential. Really impressive balance for a player who's carrying more than 320 pounds. Like, I think that's something that you talk about him being a really good athlete. The balance that he had at 320 to me is something that really, really stood out to me. So, some of the negatives, I think he's got shorter arms, so you're just going to have to deal with it. I thought, again, like, I saw Banks similarly to how when we talked about Jonah from Arizona, like, I saw some really imposing, erasing run blocking plays, but there were times when it was like, okay, I think you're more of a finesse player right now. Like, your finesse game is better than your power game. So that's an area where I'm still looking for him to get better. And I think he absolutely can. This is absolutely within the cards for him to be able to do that. So I agree with you. I think that he's a really, really good offensive tackle prospect, and another year of him taking another step forward. We're going to talk about this guy as a top 20, top 10 overall pick.
Yeah, it's just has all the makings of exactly that. All the makings of exactly that. I was trying to find a birthday for him, not only to wish him happy birthday.
I was going to say,
because I love him.
What are you going to get in his DMs?
But,
like, hey man, happy birthday! Just wanted to say that.
I do want, like, he'll
respond. He'll respond. He'll be like, "Thanks, man. Big fan of the Stock Exchange."
Yes, he will. Thanks for ranking me number one over your co-host Tommy.
Oh, I hate you. Okay, so Will Campbell, you have him at number 2.
Yeah,
I have him at number 1. Junior left tackle at LSU. So yes, this is the second LSU offensive tackle that we're talking about here on the show. Will Campbell listed at 6'6", 320 pounds. Both of those numbers above the 60th percentile for the position. At the NFL level, was a 4-star offensive tackle recruit coming out of Louisiana. Like I mentioned when we talked about Emery Jones, Campbell was also one of 3 true freshman offensive linemen that they started in that 2022 season, and he has started 26 games out of 26 games over the last 2 years. Last year, he was named a first-team All-SEC player. His father, Brian, also played offensive line, played at East Texas State University, which is now Texas A&M Commerce. His dad's nickname was Bull, which I loved, which I just kind of wanted to be like, all right, hell yeah, that's awesome. Really well-rounded player when it comes to athleticism, ceiling, technique, power. I mean, over 800 snaps last year. Pass blocking grade, 79.1. Pass blocking grade on true pass sets, 78.9. Run blocking grade in man gap scheme blocking plays, 78.0. Run blocking grade in zone blocking plays, 79.6. I mean, it's just negatively graded run plays, 7.9%. That's 78th percentile. The guy's just good. He's just good at everything. He's just really damn good at everything that comes with being an offensive lineman. Are there going to be some guys in this class that might be a little bit stronger than him? Are there going to be some players that might be a little more athletic than him? Yes and yes. But does anybody put it together, total package, like Will Campbell does at this point? No. And I still think that there's even reason to believe that he can get better in all facets. So to me, when we talk about potential in a preseason ranking, this guy's awesome. He's got more of a narrow base in his stance, which sometimes you look at that and you go, okay, do you lack flexibility here? Like, do you have lack of flexibility in your hip flexors or your groin? Like, is that why you have a narrow stance? But actually, when you look at both him and Emery Jones, you go, okay, LSU is teaching him this. Like, this is the preferred alignment pre-snap that they want from their offensive tackle. So it's more of a technique thing. Really strong and balanced coming out of his stance. Body movements are quick, compact, precise. He's always in control. He is somebody who he carries a lot of weight, and I thought that he'd be a little bit more lumbering. Like, I thought, okay, like he would be a little bit maybe more clumsy, or the feet would be a little bit more heavy. The feet are light for a player of his size. I think his shoulders stay very even. He's not flailing his limbs anywhere. Everything is just so
flat
controlled
back
with him. Dude, it looks so
Yep.
It just looks good. I mean, when the ball is snapped, he just looks like a offensive lineman who knows exactly what they're doing. He's got adequate flexibility. He's got adequate movement skills. He's got adequate strength. The hands are up. They're active. They're ready to strike with power. He's a very patient blocker as well. The guys who are number 1 and number 2 on my list here, these are the most patient blockers that I watched. These are people who understand timing, who never panic, who are calm in the situation and then confident in how they're going to be able to handle it. That often speaks to great anticipation and also a great understanding of not only you, but also your opponent. That's why I love Blake Miller and Will Campbell so much, to have them 1 and 2 here. So some weaknesses from him. He's got a little bit higher of a pre-snap stance, and it's 6'6" that can naturally lead to him just like losing the leverage battle. I think the arm length is, again, we're going to talk about it, a little bit shorter than the 6'6".
I think it's 33 and a half.
Yeah, I think it's going to be shorter than the 6'6" height frame would suggest that maybe he has. And I think there's a little bit of a lack of flexibility in how much ground he can cover in one stride of his kick slides. But his feet, to me, are quick enough to where he makes up for it. Again, like that was a Fuanga thing for me last year. Did Fuanga have the kick stride length of a Olufashinu? No, he didn't. But his feet were so quick that he was still able to make up for it. It wasn't as quite impactful as it was for Fashanu, but he was able to make up for it. And you go, okay, we're not getting in trouble here with how maybe lack of groin flexibility or groin stretch you kind of have to be able to really reach a certain landing mark when you're doing a deep passing set. So I wasn't really worried about that with Campbell, similarly to how I'm not too worried about it with Fuanga either. But overall, really, really impressed by this prospect. If he continues to get better this upcoming year, again, just like Kelvin Banks, top 10, absolutely in question with him.
I'm with you. I mean, former 5-star, doesn't turn 21 until January. The way he can keep his back flat and pass pro through the rep, stalling speed to power, head to toe strength, great balance, love the balance, consistently keeps his hands inside and under pads. Trevor, I thought he was a difference maker on the goal line. It was like he cranked things up to a 10. When they got on the goal line, I was like, well, I'll tell you who's going to win his assignment and run behind. It's going to be Will Campbell. That was awesome to watch. And I'm with you on the length. Like that's where you get concerned, because it's not that he might just not have the length. It's that's what beats him. The agile rushers that can get that outside shoulder across his face, and he tries to recover and he doesn't have the length to slow them down. So he's him and Banks to me are first rounders all day.
Yep. My early pro comp for Will Campbell is Ryan Ramczyk. I went back and I watched, I thought about that, and the mock draftable kind of, linked up a little bit there. And I went back and I was watching some Ryan Ramczyk. I watched some Saints footage from him, but also some Wisconsin footage from him. And I'm like, man, I feel like they're not the exact same player, but they're just so reliable in so many areas. And so that's the early player comp for me there. Well, there we go. Anybody else you want to shout out?
Oh,
we had a lot of guys that we did like outside of the top 8.
I know what the comments are going to respond to, and I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to be in the interior offensive line group for me, even though he plays left tackle. Ernest Green the third.
Yep, same for me.
From Georgia.
We'll talk about him next week.
Yeah, he will not be. We'll talk about him next week. As we said, I just didn't see him as a tackle prospect right now. So.
Yeah, might win. Ernest Green the third might win the bench press competition at the combine. Just for the upper body strength is to me nuts from this guy.
I will be there no matter what.
I will be there no matter what. We would love to hear from you guys as well. Actually, before I tell people that we would love to hear from them as well, can you give me your top 8 once again, and then I will give my top 8.
Absolutely. Number 8 was Riley Mahlman from Wisconsin. He is their right tackle. Blake Miller from Clemson. Wyatt Milum from West Virginia. Emery Jones from LSU. He's their right tackle at LSU. Josh Conerly Jr. from Oregon. Jonah Savaiinaea from Arizona. Will Campbell from LSU. And Kelvin Banks Jr. was number 1 for me from Texas.
Number 8, the Oregon right tackle, Ajani Cornelius. Number 7, his teammate, the Oregon left tackle, Josh Conerly Jr. Number 6, I had Emery Jones, the LSU offensive tackle. Number 5, I had Anthony Belton, the NC State left tackle. Number 4, Josh Simmons, the left tackle from Ohio State. Number 3, Kelvin Jr., the left tackle from Texas. Number 2, Blake Miller, the right tackle from Clemson. And then Will Campbell, the left tackle from LSU, I have at number 1. Now, we would love to hear from you guys. You know, as always, it's not just, hey, you got to give us a top 10, whatever. Even if you just want to shout out one guy, whether it's something that we talked about here or just giving your own opinion. We think that the YouTube comment section is a great place to get out your mini scouting report, start these conversations, go back and forth with people. That's what's always so much fun for us. We love to hear from you guys and obviously respond to our own takes as well, but we'd love to hear from you guys too. I think this is a really good platform. If you don't have anywhere to put out your takes other than Twitter right now, put them in the YouTube comment section. Let's start a little dialogue. I love that when that happens. So let us know if you got a top 3, if you got a top 5, if you got a top 8, if you got a top 10, if you're a real sicko and you already got a top 20 offensive tackles for the 2025 NFL draft, fire away. We'd love to see it. Best way to do that, YouTube comments, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. We are over 30,000 subscribers. You guys are wonderful. We say it all the time, every single time we hit a milestone. Cannot thank you enough for following the show, for subscribing to the show, for telling people about the show. It is a blast for us to do, and it's a blast for us to do the bigger that this community gets. So you guys have cultivated it in such a really fun way that I think other people want to be a part of it, and we salute you guys for it. So not only salute you for being 30,000 strong now, but also the environment and the culture and the fan base that we have here with the Addicts is it's really fun for us as hosts to follow and read and all that good stuff. If you want to hit us up and you're not on YouTube and you're audio only, at Connor J. Rogers, at Tampa Bay Trey, Instagram, Twitter, it's the best way to do that. Connor, got anything else before we get out of here?
I second you. Big thank you to everybody. We are an army of 30,000 strong right now, which is
let's go.
I felt like we were the 300 Spartans, and now we're building a dynasty right now. It's amazing. So on the road to 50,000. That's how it goes.
Hell yeah, baby. The yacht is within reach.
Thank you, everybody.
The yacht is within reach. Appreciate everybody for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We will see you next week.